Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed. Thank you for joining me today. Cough. So, last time we explored the question of why. How do you answer a why question? What's involved in a why question? And also, similarly, tackling how questions. How? Or what is the reason? What's the reason? What's the reason? And to answer that, we looked at causes. And of course, that's a win-win for us.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Because understand, as we've been reading our job purpose, our game, the noblest game is to develop understanding. And understanding makes use of our mind, allows us to participate in reason and language and conversation and learning. Understanding is where it's at, bro.
Absolutely gooped.
And if you don't, you're absolutely gooped. And understanding involves reflecting on causes. Understanding the causes, the principles, the precondition, and also understanding also involves understanding the parts within a system and how those parts are hierarchically arranged. Not only that, how those arranged parts, if they're arranged properly. Oh, no, thumbs up. Hang on a second. If those hierarchically arranged parts are doing their intended function in their appropriateness or excellence, then it can give rise to a greater whole and a greater functioning. So, understanding involves that. Causes, preconditions, principles. Also, understanding the parts and how they're ordered and arranged hierarchically, and how that hierarchical arrangement of parts can give rise to a greater functioning or purpose. So that's all involved in understanding. So if our job here is to develop understanding as human beings or souls who have reincarnated into a species who are at that stage of development where we are specifically here to move from, well, we have ousia and logos, we can reflect and we can use language. However, our purpose is to overcome our caveman roots, which only uses a very shallow kind of self-reflection called belief. We're just reflecting on the physical appearances, images, shapes, and colors of authority figures, and sacrificing our understanding to do that. And a shallow kind of logos called pathologos, the fundamental, unsuspected false beliefs about self and reality that we identify with and is the cause of our ignorance and all human problems. Boo. So, that's where we are, evolutionarily speaking. A shallow ousia or a distorted ousia and a distorted logos or pathologos based on belief. So our job, therefore, is to move from that into our appropriateness of those parts, or our excellence of those parts. How do we use ousia and logos most appropriately or in its intended purpose? That's understanding. Understanding makes use of self-reflection, in particular, leaning on questions, carrying questions at all times if we can, questions about the nature of self and reality, of course, questions and language. So there's our ousia, self-reflection, open, curious state of mind, also having lots of fun while being puzzled and curious. And the second part is logos, using understanding, using reason and language to answer those questions and answers. Logos, ousia and logos. That's understanding. Excuse me. And Of course, the specific skill in which we develop understanding is the dialectic. So that is, and therefore, as the dialectic or understanding can be used to solve problems, purification, and develop through our evolution to our higher spiritual purpose, there's our purification and perfection, it therefore is used to benefit. So the dialectic is the skill that benefits human beings. Well, benefits anyone who has evolved into that level of Usia and Logos. So anyone who can reflect, anyone who has language, they are benefited through the dialectic, turning it therefore from a skill into an art because of the element of benefit. This is reviewing where we are in the text, by the way. So, the art of dialectic is what we're here to master, and makes use of our evolved capacities, Usia and Logos. It's a reflection on causes, and that's what we did yesterday. We reflected on the list of causes that can understand, or that can allow us to understand and answer why questions. Why did that house get built? Oh, because we had wood. That's an answer. It's not the only answer. Because we had great builders. That's not enough. They also had to have the activity or skill of building. So we went through that list of 5 fundamental causes that are all reasons for something to be. But so therefore we're doing our job in understanding, but also understanding involves seeing those parts hierarchically arranged. So we had those causes arranged in a hierarchical way. So further understanding. More winning.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
More winning. But also, what we are understanding is not just an arbitrary hierarchical ordered list of terms. It's the hierarchical list of ordered terms. In other words, there is a paradigm of understandability, a paradigm of not just understandability, but knowability as well. The word for that is intelligible. So there's an intelligible paradigm in reality that we can understand. So long as we know the master list, know the master paradigm, know the master model, know the master structure. Knowing the master structure or the structure of the Logos allows us to apply it to anything in existence that is understandable, that follows a hierarchical set of terms that can be understood. So for instance, building a house. And so we applied that understanding of that list of causes to the other things we're interested in as souls on our journey to reach our goal, such as the dialectic. The dialectic follows a structure. We applied it to the virtues. We need to develop the virtues, practice these certain things along the way so that we can actually go through that hero's journey to master the dialectic and use it to benefit ourselves in the ultimate way, to know the nature of self and reality while purifying ourselves from our false beliefs about self and reality. You can't do that without courage. You can't do that without keeping your cool in the ups and downs. Temperance. So those are the virtues. We also connected it to, glancing over here to jog my memory. What? Looks like it didn't save. Disaster. Oh, that's right, my computer crashed. So we lost all our work on causes. Oh well, we can do a quick review. My computer crashed yesterday. Let me remember. We related it to the virtues. We related it to... we didn't relate it to... No, yes, we did. We related it to the kinds of souls. Because if we can... we could also relate it to the parts of our soul. So if the parts of our soul are arranged according to that logos hierarchy of ordered terms in their appropriate way, doing their appropriate function or excellent function. Remember, that's what understanding is. If we apply it to our soul, that means we can develop. We can find the aspects or parts of our soul, arrange them properly in the right hierarchy, make sure each one of those parts are doing their proper function, which should give rise to a higher quality of whole. For example, if you have your arms and your legs and your spleen and all of the parts in the right order, and each of them are doing their right thing, spleen is spleening, heart is hearting, fingers are fingering, then you give rise to a greater dimension or quality or level of functioning of the whole we call mind or consciousness. Similarly, if we can map the aspects or qualities or parts of the soul according to that model, we can arrange ourselves appropriately in the right hierarchy, make sure that each part is doing their intended function, which should give rise to a higher state of being, higher state of enlightenment, or cognitive functioning, or spiritual experience, or state of self. That's our growth. That's how we reach our excellence. By using the principles of logos, which are also the principles of understanding, and applying it to what's most significant. Sure, you can apply it to music and building a house, as we did yesterday, as a metaphor. And if you happen to be a builder as a profession, as you're building, you can spend your time wondering about the paradigm that you're in. You could use whatever art or skill you do for a living as a method of reflecting on the logos and the dialectic and understanding. And you can even have fun finding analogical connections to what's meaningful. I wonder what part of my soul is like this wood that I'm hammering on. I wonder what part of the soul is like the blueprints that I'm using to build the house. So, a hierarchical ordering of our soul, of the dialectic, of the virtues that give rise to our highest functioning or justice, which we can participate in order to reach our highest goal, the highest goal being the final cause, our destiny, the destiny of man, the highest purpose for which we exist. But also the first cause, because it's that self that we are seeking, the ultimate state of self, that is the cause of all of the other causes that unfolded from it. Which means we can have a look at human souls, or just souls, that are not ordered in the appropriate way, or their parts are not doing their intended functioning, giving us a set of, or a list of souls that are sick. So, leaving us with one ideal soul, the properly ordered soul, each part doing its proper function, allowing the giving rise to a greater whole.
I'm always good, and that is what I stand for, being good all the time.
Yes, someone who's always good all the time.
The primary purpose of peanuts is not to murder, it's to eat for sustenance.
See, the primary purpose of peanuts is not to murder, but to eat for sustenance. And the primary purpose of ourselves, we can understand and label or name as the properly ordered soul, giving us a set of misordered souls or classes of sickness, giving us a list of kinds of souls that we can understand, that we could go in and out of or move through in our development. So, because it's lost from the board, let's put it back on the board. Because my computer crashed. So, why? Why are we here? Why do things work the way they do? Or causes? Excuse me. I should have pressed my cough button. So, we make sure the board fits. We started with our example of a builder. A builder at the very bottom needs wood. Not that kind of wood. Don't be disgusting.
Wrong. You're so wrong. But that's okay. We're all allowed to be wrong sometimes.
What if a chimp had a cell phone? Who would he call?
He would call the man who he buys his wood from. So wood, the material cause, the stuff. You need a builder. Now that can be called the instrumental cause or the efficient cause. Let's say efficient. Yesterday we talked about it as the instrumental cause. They're just funny words, the doer. But there has to be something between the two in order for the builder to act upon the wood, the activity cause. And building, the skill or the act of building. But at every stage of the building process, the builder has to have some sort of model or blueprints. Actually, instead of wood, let's go bricks. For the alliteration fun. Blueprints is the model cause or the paradigm. Paradigm is a fancy word for model. Paradigm. The paradigm or model cause. And also Billy needs place, needs somewhere to live, place to live. So Billy needs a place to live is the first cause, because if Billy didn't first need a place to live, we wouldn't have gone through all of this other activity. We wouldn't have sourced the bricks, sourced the builders, hired the builders, made sure that they have the skill of building, designed some blueprints, but also that you finished your job. So when all, as we've just said, when all of the parts are arranged in the proper order, we make sure that we value the blueprints the most. We recognize that there's levels of intelligence. The blueprints reflect the intelligence of the architects and builders and everyone. The builder themselves have a certain level of intelligence. The activity required a certain level of intelligence, and bricks right at the bottom are the least intelligent of the whole thing. Once all of them are ordered and they're all doing their proper functioning, so you don't look at the bricks for the blueprint. You get the ideal bricks. Well, ideally, you get the best bricks. Often we don't get that under capitalism because of the absurdity of capitalism or the enshittification. But ideally, the best bricks that last the longest, the most efficient, renewable, sustainable, long-lasting, that kind of stuff. When all of these things are in their right order, doing their right job, it gives rise to the greater whole. It gives rise to a place for Billy to live in. So it's also the first and final cause. So there's a list of causes. And we said, well, hang on a second. If this is an actual list, if this is universal, this applies to not just building, but everything. Any why question you could give these 5 kinds of answers. Then it probably follows the paradigm of the Logos. Meaning it applies universally. So what are we learning? We're learning how to understand and think. That's the dialectic. So we can say, when you take the subject itself and talk about itself, that's called definition in the dialectic. You start with a definition of your term. You want to understand beauty? Talk about beauty itself. What is beauty? If it exists. Not in the physical world, but exists as in the realm of causes or the realm of mind or being. The non-physical dimension that we can experience when we awaken the eye of our soul called Usia and experience reality itself or mind itself. Just talk about beauty there. The aspect of reality or mind, or the aspect of the blueprints of everything, because mind also reflects upon itself, there's our Usia, understands its intelligibility, there's our Logos, highest sense, and uses that self-reflection and understandability to generate the physical cosmos. So it's the blueprints. So what, by the way, those blueprints of reality or mind, are they perfectly harmonized and ordered and symmetrical and balanced? Is that beauty? Is beauty therefore an aspect of the paradigm of mind or the Logos? Definition. But also, by the way, the answers to those questions you want to get from the text. You don't want to carry your own opinions that you got from your parents and your society and your religion. You want to be reading a text that reflects the actual Logos. So a text written by an architect. That's why we read Pierre Grimes and Socrates. They are master architects. They know the paradigm of the Logos. They've gone through this process. So sometimes people come into our chat and say, what do you think of Kant? Or what do you think of Hegel? And damn it, I need to have this on its own sound drop. And we say things like, quick. So what do you think of someone like Kant? And we say...
Kant would say some fucking bullshit.
Because...
Kant's a little fucking bitch.
Because he ain't no a master architect. He's someone who hasn't gone through this process yet. Very few people have. But that's okay, because that's why we can also therefore hierarchically order different people. Kant would be lower on the list, Socrates and Pierre Grimes right at the top as a master architect from which we can derive the blueprints or paradigm of reality. So in other words, when we do this dialectic on beauty, we need to be pulling from the information in the text only. Now you can weave different Platonic dialogues together to create greater insight, but from the same author. This is why modern study of philosophy or modern study of mythology is so absurd. Because as we've been reading, you can take these patterns of reality, of the dialectic, of the soul, and personify them in stories to remember and communicate them. That's mythology. So each of these terms you could assign a god to. That's what Plato and Proclus and the Platonic philosophers do. That's what Damascius does in the Bible. He takes the terms and he arranges them himself to communicate the logos, what we need to learn and evolve and solve problems. Therefore, the way that we study mythology in school, here's Zeus. Here is like 500 stories from 500 different people about Zeus. Therefore, if you become a mythology major at college, that's what you do. You get a whole bunch of different opinions from different people who use these gods in different ways, put them in one block, and that's mythology at school. Garbage. See? No ordered structure, no hierarchical arrangement, no reflection of the paradigm of reality or logos that you can therefore jump from one set to another, talk about causes, talk about building houses, talk about the dialectic, talk about classes of soul. It's an absurd way of studying. Imagine if you and everyone in your street wrote a parable, wrote a moral story, a story, made an analogy to give some sort of teaching. They'd all be different because everyone's at a different level of intelligence, different opinions, different level of understanding, and have a whole bunch of different personal false beliefs. So if somebody collected all of the stories from your street and said, this is morality, no. You have to take it a person at a time. And that's theology, by the way. To mythologically represent these principles of the paradigm of the logos. That's theology. Notice, not literal. There's no sky daddy with a white beard who throws lightning at you if you say God damn it or something or whatever, or read Harry Potter. So, using the text to talk about the thing itself, definition, subject or self in relation to itself. That defined self in relation to others, demonstration. How does beauty function to a significant other? How does beauty relate to justice? How does beauty relate to the self? How does beauty relate to the one? How does beauty relate to the soul? Pick one. From the text. Where there are terms from the text that can relate to that. Let's pick, how does beauty relate to the soul of a philosopher? Someone, just a human being awake to our purpose, understanding. That's what a philosopher is. Recognizing that we have an A and B button, ousia and logos, and we have the distortion of that, the X and Y button, belief and pathologos. If we're mashing these buttons in life like most NPCs are, or people stuck in their problems asleep, then you are going to be stuck in a loop of your problems. But if you press the A and B button together by doing understanding or the dialectic, you can win the game. That's what it means to be a awake person or a philosopher. Having been affected, how do you affect others or division? How does a philosopher then relate to their art, their skill, their relationships, their choice of goals, their dreams and daydreams? Having been affected, how do those others then relate back to beauty or the subject? Conclusion. So that's the structure of the dialectic. And yesterday we looked at the fact that, hang on a second, by having them lined up like this, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different sets of terms that you can jump between. Let's give them different colors. Allowing you to be able to explain it to others or gain insight yourself. For example, what do we exactly mean by the efficient cause? Oh, it's how the highest term, the subject, the self, relates to others. What? Oh, let me explain it a different way. It's like how you function or demonstrate yourself, the functioning of the builder. But what's the builder functioning according to? Oh, according to the definition. Therefore, the definition is prior or higher, more primarily causal, and its functioning or demonstration follows. Therefore, if the builder has a rubbish blueprint, he's not going to function well. Paradigm. That's a strange word. What's that mean? Oh, let's look at our list or sets of hierarchically arranged terms. Sets of terms with sets of things we have applied ourselves to understand. Paradigm. Oh, it's like the definition. It's like the thing itself. It's like the blueprints. And of course, we're using building a house, but you can use anything. Painting. It's the model. It's the model that you're drawing a picture of. Now, we've also highlighted the fact that when you do apply yourself to understand, which is our job, our game, not only can you make these jumps and double jumps to explain analogously whatever it is that you're talking about or gain insight, you also give rise to questions. So again, questions and answers, giving rise to ways of answering through analogy, but also giving rise to questions because we're missing a term in this, missing a term here. What's the first and final cause? What's the reason for the unfolding of the structure of self and other? Self and other, that's two things. What gave rise to two things? And why? So, what gave rise to it? The first and why? What's the purpose? What's the whole purpose? If we are here to specifically master the dialectic, and our life is full of tragedy and suffering and blocks and problems if we don't, because we're carrying a false definition of ourselves based on belief, causing our negative functioning, demonstration, dividing up into every aspect of our life, causing our negative dreams, tangents, daydreams, fantasies, negative relationships, blocks to our work, our play, every area of our life, and causing us to therefore relate back to that false image of ourself by identifying with it as a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, causing our life to be not worth living because all we've done is further entrench ourselves in the ignorant false belief of self that prevented our further development spiritually, which was the reason we were reincarnated in the first place. So, we can apply these terms to the positive or the negative, the greater or the lesser. to gain insight into our problems. A false definition, causing our false functioning in every area of our life, causing us to be further entrenched in our problems in a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Or, that's the negative, the positive. We want, what would it be like to have each of these things in their proper functioning? Not broken bricks, but actual bricks, or the best bricks, or the correct definition of the self, our ideal functioning as human beings. Applied it to every area of our life, giving rise to some sort of benefit to those that we affect and ourselves. Others, both us and ourselves, both others have a positive effect. Having a positive effect on both us and them. So we can do that. So we could say, and because this is the dialectic, of course, we could say, if it is, or if it isn't, or the lesser, or the distortion, a false belief of self. Belief and image of self. Causing our cycles of problems. Or functioning as projection. Projection and blind spots. Which is interpretation, to add what isn't there, or projection. See, all I'm doing is applying this paradigm of understanding to our terms from our reading in the text to gain a further, deeper insight and understanding into the nature of all human problems. All human problems have a definition, a false belief and image of the self and reality that functions in a way we call projection. So cry bullies do the bad thing and project that badness onto others and feel like they are the victim. They bully and they cry that they're the victim. All of the fascists, all of the Nazis, all of the dictators, they're all sadistic inflictors of injustice while all feeling justified and also feeling victimized themselves. Projection or interpretation. And as we learn to read, we're learning to read by specifically not projecting our own personal opinions and beliefs, but reading what's in the text to see what's there. So we're learning to read without projection. We are engaged in a spiritual yoga. And by the way, when we are blocked from seeing something or projecting what's not there, we take notes. Because that is the clues that we can use to surface our unsuspected false belief about self and reality. That's the cause. See, cause. You solve problems by addressing causes. So if you realize your division, you're not reading well, or you're blocked from reading, or you're not tuning into the stream as much as you'd like to, you can say, oh, that's the division. Or even you might even sense the conclusion. As a result, you're what? You're stuck. So you see, oh, I'm stuck from my I'm stuck. I'm not reading. I feel stuck. I feel miserable. I feel like I'm a small bean or a bad noodle. See? Trace it back through the hierarchy of causes. Oh, why is that? Because in this area, but in particular in this division, see, all I'm doing is I'm jumping between these sets to understand. In this division, in my reading, I'm not reading really well. I'm blocked from reading. I don't want to do it, or I'm not following, or whatever. Oh, okay, trace it back. Are you projecting something that's not there? Or are you blind from seeing what is there? Either while you're reading or as you're thinking about beginning to read. I can't do it because I'm going to suck. Because I'll tell myself,
Kant's a little fucking bitch.
Kant's a bitch and I'm a bitch.
It's a total shit show.
And it'll be a total shit show.
Absolutely gooped.
And I'll be gooped. Oh. So, you traced it back to interpretation, which will have its cause. You can surface, therefore, in this kind of reflection, a false image and belief about yourself and reality that's blocking you. That's inconsistent with you being able to read. I'm not a reader. I can't do that. I'm just a whatever. Small bean bad noodle. Likewise, we can do it for the affirmative or the positive. What if it is? What if we do have the right image of self in reality? How would we function? How would we function to others? What would be the result of that function? How would they relate back to self, having been affected by our functioning from the self, according to understanding or following the logos? So, right, so we've given birth to another question here. Just as we said, hang on a second, self and other, what's the first cause and the reason for an unfolding into difference, into self and other? We could also ask the question, definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion. Didache, what's the, where did that come from? And what's the point? What's the point in mastering that? But notice we can, because we have these questions that we've given birth because we've applied the structure. In other words, we can see a missing piece. So you're playing Resident Evil, you see this blue gate was opened with a blue key, the green gate was opened with a green key, or the green gate was open with a green key, the yellow gate was open with a yellow key, but the orange gate is locked. See? You've established a pattern through analogy. That's how we think. We think through patterns and establishing connections between what we do know and what we don't. Or what we can see and what we can't. Or the sets within the hierarchical terms. So, that must therefore be some sort of orange key. So whatever is the cause of self and other has to not only be the cause, but has to be the final goal. Billy having a place to live. See, these are two we do know. Whatever is the cause for the dialectic to unfold, that we as human beings engage with in conversation. See, this is self and other. This next list with definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion is how we use it in conversation. We talk, we connect with each other. It's not a solo quest. So, whatever is the unfolding of the dialectic in human relation or in human or soul relationships, unfolded it, but our job is to somehow get back to that first cause, first and final cause. So we have a question and we have a couple of clues as to how we would answer those questions. We also related it to the virtues. Keeping your cool, oops. Keeping your cool, or fancy word for keeping your cool is temperance. The activity that we engage outwardly in, courage. So to keep your whatever level of understanding or of the logos and the logos that you're here to seek, and the pathologos, the dangerous pathologos, the cause of all ignorance and suffering, keeping those ideas in mind, the tragedy of a false belief about self and reality, or pathologos, and the significance of the truth. You have to keep that in mind during the activity of learning it. In other words, you still believe your false beliefs. You don't yet know the nature of self and reality. Therefore, you need courage for the activity in everything you do, division, as you other from yourself go through those other activities to ideally reach the true definition and true functioning of self, to reach the paradigm and the functioning or efficient cause. Courage. To be ruled and following the logos in everything you do, wisdom. That's the virtue of the wisdom. Now, we've also defined wisdom as a cognitive function, which includes understanding and knowledge. But there's another use of the word wisdom in terms of the virtue, or how you arrange your soul. This is the understanding applied to arranging our soul. Temperance is to be arranged materially. It's the baseline. In other words, you've got a desiring part, an outward moving part, and a reasoning part of your soul. You desire a good sandwich, you seek the truth in your activities, but you have to reason about those things. So when the bricks are below the ceiling and above the concrete base, you've got the well-ordered house, the well-ordered material. So too, that's the virtue of temperance. To be ordered such that the good that you seek is wisdom, or is the logos, or is the self. That's what you want to get pleasure out of. That's what you recognize as the good that you should be desiring. As you do outward activities in your life, the activity should be to reach wisdom, the logos, the dialectic. And as you reason, you should be reasoning according to the logos. So every part of the soul functioning together for the same purpose in a well-ordered way, temperance. As a virtue. So wisdom is how you are ruled, how you relate yourself to others, because you want to get the virtue of justice, which somehow sits above the others, but that's a puzzle. But having this model, you can answer that puzzle, or you can get some clues about that puzzle. Yeah, because the paradigm sits above everything else in terms of building a house. The blueprints sits above everything else. It's non-physical, but it accounts for everything physical. It's the map for everything physical. So it incorporates everything while sitting above it in a higher way. It doesn't matter if you can't find the right bricks at the hardware store, the blueprints aren't going to change. Doesn't matter if a builder doesn't show up for work, the blueprints will always be perfect. Justice. Justice, therefore, the virtue of justice happens as a result in our upward movement of having these other virtues. And it won't change. So in other words, justice can be defined as, in whatever it is you're doing, you don't change your functioning, you don't change your goal, you don't change how you respond. Justice, human excellence, being in the zone. You act most appropriately in whatever you do. because you only act in the same way, seeking the logos, following the logos. But of course, there's that mysterious virtue that isn't. That's a huge puzzle. Phronesis. Socrates says all of these things are like gold coins that you go to the shop and trade in for the real thing. The true virtue of self-phronesis. But we don't know what that is. But we can get some clues by applying it to these other lists, these other sets. Phronesis is kind of the first cause and final cause. The whole reason for this whole process is Billy needs a place to live. The whole reason for the unfolding and the development of justice, of virtues, is to somehow give rise to this virtue. And if we gain insight into phronesis, we might gain an insight into these other two questions we have about these other two categories. We can also relate it to kinds of souls. Now, with kinds of souls, there's only one ideal soul. If you are perfectly arranged in the way that you're supposed to, then you have your intended function or first and final cause, the aristocratic, or the philosopher king. Or queen. Therefore, in our list, we can't have other versions of the same thing. So it's going to be a diminishing, hierarchically arranged still, maybe gaining insights from these other terms still. The timocratic soul. So the philosopher king, obviously, ruled by and seeking logos of self, so self logos. Properly ordered, to be ruled in this kind of a way. But if your outward seeking part of your soul is dominating, you're seeking fame, you are honor seeking, timocratic soul. Timocratic means honor seeking. So people who love honor, you could call them philotimos. Love of honor, love of fame, love of celebrity, love of those Instagram likes. So to be ruled by your desires, oligarchic. Bad spelling. Oligarchy, to seek wealth. Now, if you don't pick any, and you're just going with the flow, you're just a leaf in the breeze, democratic. The establishment Democratic Party. They don't have any principles. They don't fucking do anything. They let absurd fascist Nazi dictators who murder whoever they want and steal everything from their own people while killing their own people, they let him be in charge. That's the establishment left, the democratic soul. Hey bro, whatever's popular, we'll run on that. Hillary's popular, we'll run Hillary. But actually, everyone wants Bernie Sanders and AOC and Zoran Mamdani to actually help people because they actually give a shit. No, but our polls suggest that we need to appeal to white racist red, so we are going to have Dick Cheney's daughter appear at the Democratic convention, and we're going to steal the votes away from Bernie Sanders. And why do the Democrats do that? So they can get their goddamn fucking bag. So they can earn their profits from their genocidal sponsored sponsorships. They can get all the money. They lie for the money. But what happens then? When people don't have any principles at all, they don't have any understanding, or to understand it a different way, they are other from other. There's no connection to self in other to other. And if self represents understanding or truth or principles, then they are other from that, and they're also other from each other. There is no cohesion. There's no unity within the establishment left. I'm using American politics as the example, but you'll find it in anywhere, any country, because it's a principle. At least the fascists have some sort of unity in their desire for sadistic fascism. Pathologos, bound by the pathologos. So, the Democrats are all stupid and fighting against each other and not doing anything and allowing the fascists to take over. So, allowing the billionaires and the oligarchs to take over, and then someone comes along and says the cost of living is bad, and we don't have all the billionaires are taking because there's all the money because there's so much corruption, and I will drain the swamp. You need me to come in as a fascist. Give me dictatorship power and I will save you from the oligarchs. That's the tyrant. The tyrannic soul. So these are to be ruled by injustice. The worst kind of soul. To have no principles, the second worst. To be ruled by physical desires, wealth, oligarchic. To be ruled by honor. See, honor is better than complete injustice or tyrannic, but still, do you want someone who wants to be famous? Or do you want someone who is a philosopher, king or queen, or the aristocratic kind of soul, who is seeking the truth about self and reality and is seeking to use that understanding? So here we go. We can do another list. Someone who has the paradigm of truth and understanding, and they can use it as an efficient or instrumental cause in an activity that benefits all others, that will then allow the material conditions to be met for all other people to then relate back to that paradigm themselves, and everyone can learn that mastery of self. Everyone can become their ideal. See, we're using the causes to understand what we should be seeking. And therefore, as the aristocratic sits atop, the aristocratic needs to be able to function in all ways. Has to be the first cause of society, has to be the first cause of their soul, has to be the self, the state of self, or phronesis. See, everything, we can use everything on that top line. But as we've also seen, hey, Billy only has a place to live because it's the final cause when he has all of the following things. He has to have everything for there to be a house. If there weren't bricks, if they weren't a builder, if they weren't blueprints, he couldn't have it. Or if any of them were flawed, if he had crappy blueprints, AI generated slop, if he had bricks that were actually styrofoam, he wouldn't have a decent place to live. He wouldn't be able to reach his final goal. Therefore, the ideal that we are seeking would be all of them. To be yourself, that is a whole that comes to birth because you have all of the parts hierarchically arranged and doing their intended function. So your state of self, having the model of truth, justice, beauty, reality, that you can function through in anything you do, any activity, any division, any other to other, creating the material conditions or creating the conditions and causes and preconditions for all people to then themselves as others relate back to that paradigm themselves and become other back to self, to discover that paradigm that you have. Learn truth, learn beauty, learn justice themselves. All people become like the leader. So what's it called? What would it be called to know the paradigm of reality as a definition that, like justice, doesn't change? My new anti-spam bot just did its job. I've been complaining about spam for so long, but I actually have my buttons.
You need to flood these platforms with fake people. You don't talk to me, you robot. Shut up.
Robot, shut up.
Kant's a little fucking bitch.
Kant's a little bit
Calm
too.
your fucking tits.
And you need to calm your
You
tits.
piece of shit is a robot.
Piece of shit, just a robot.
Fucking bitch, pussy ass fucker.
What's your fucking
Weird
bitch?
business, because it's like, you know, a bunch of stupid little robots trying to spam everybody to sell crap.
And my anti-spam bot has stopped the spam bots. Hooray! So, what would it be called to have the paradigm, to know it by definition? Not how it relates to anything, but always itself by itself. See, all I'm doing is I'm going along this line. Everything we do have. Okay, the states of soul is a bit different because these are 4 bad ones and a good one, but that's a different thing. That's for like categories of arrangements. But what would it be like to justice? What's justice? Always doing your intended function. What would it be like to always have the paradigm? That's the definition. Not how it relates to others, but how it's just itself to itself. What would it be called to have that? Our job, that's what we're after. That's what we need, because we also are going through these causes. Why do we exist? We exist because we have some sort of material cause. We have got bodies and bones and stuff. But we exist to learn some sort of activity, go through some sort of activity of learning that we can go through to gain some sort of efficient or instrumental cause, some sort of activity or function. We're here because we've got material stuff. We're here to learn, to master some activity, master some functioning called the dialectic, that itself allows us to experience the model of the dialectic all at once. And our purpose is, once we have ticked all of those boxes, we can have Billy's house to live in. We have the bricks, building, builder, blueprints, and Billy has a house to live in. In other words, we need all of them. Take care of your material body. Do the activities through which you can learn. This channel.
I'm too pure.
Whoops. To master the dialectic, master understanding. Oh! Master what? The dialectic. What's that? Understanding. Now we have another set of terms. What's it like to know the paradigm all at once? That's knowledge. Or nous in the Greek. Nous is good sometimes because we use the English knowledge with a capital K, but we don't mean knowledge of how to do a kickflip. It's specific knowledge of the paradigm or the definition of self in. Hey, what's that experience of knowledge? In the text, we've seen it's the self reflecting itself to know itself. That's why we call it the penultimate state of enlightenment, or the second last state of enlightenment. Just as above the experience of self to self, we have this question mark. What's above that? So equally so, we have that question. We've given birth to we've seen again that question we've been carrying. What's the state of knowing above knowing? Which is the same question. What's prior to self knowing itself? Or what's prior to the unfolding of dialectic through definitions and demonstration? Or what's the first and final cause? What's the Billy needs a place to live for ourself that unfolded everything? What's that state of phronesis? See, all we're doing is going along that line. Isn't this fun?
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike?
It's right here.
I'm going to get you. I'm going to find you.
No.
And I'm going to get you.
Please don't.
Freaks.
You freak. If you try and get me, I say...
You have severe mental illness, and you need to be fucking checked into an insane asylum.
Insane asylum, I say. So. Knowledge. So what are we doing? We're building another set to do that are outline cognitive functions. When you have that paradigm or knowledge, you can function through it, called understanding. Now, it's not understanding how many beans there are in China, it's dianoia. It's specifically understanding this. What's this? Some sort of map that's not physical. I mean, we're writing it on the blackboard, but it's an idea. It's an idea as a whole. So you can bring this into a whole. That's how we're able to jump across along these lines, because it's a whole, but also it's got all of these ordered terms that can come together into a whole called the paradigm or the model. So in other words, we are engaged in understanding, and we can use this understanding to give birth to questions and collect clues and create theories to understand those questions. That's understanding. Or the demonstration of the definition, or the model self to self as the paradigm or blueprints of reality that could be experienced in the divine luminosity of mind knowing itself, or ousia. So everything in that top line, we can function through it, use that self to others as a efficient or instrumental cause. Let's use instrumental. Some people use the word efficient differently, so I think instrumental can sit here nicely. Although we probably should say something better, because instrumental is just, it sounds nice, but instrumental sounds like it could be a material cause, like an instrument. Or instrumental sounds like activity as well. So we could call it the doer. The doer. But I want to be fancy. Let's use instrumental for now. Instrumental cause. So, what would it be like to be functioning according to that paradigm, or functioning as an instrumental according to the paradigm, or functioning as a builder according to the blueprints? Dianoia. Dialectic also is there. Now, there are two ways of going here. Okay, let's do them both at the same time. I didn't think we were going to do this much work on the causes today, but this is fun stuff. It's good stuff. So these are the cognitive functions, the different capacities that we have with the mind. Cognitive functions. But we could take the ideal sense in our human activity. So maybe we could say, what do we call it? Okay, let's say dialectic. Dialectician. Dialectician would be the use of understanding or the instrumental cause, ideally. Now, what makes a dialectician a dialectician? What makes it different than just understanding a physical thing? Because this isn't modern science, which the principle behind modern science is to torture Mother Nature until she reveals her secret, to quote, I think it's Bacon, giving us what we need to make hand grenades and nuclear weapons, but without recognizing that that's just a cognitive function at the bottom, materialism or empiricism. So we set materialism down the bottom. That has to be always only in service of knowledge and knowing the self and understanding. Then you just have people using their physical science to build giant AI infrastructure centers that are poisoning the air and water and stealing all the resources for the profits of billionaires, or building spending trillions and trillions of dollars to make guns and bullets and bombs and drones that just do only harm and murder people, instead of using our understanding of the material world to build clean, renewable, efficient energy sources like solar and wind. We dig up radioactive material from the ground that's supposed to stay under there for nuclear plants, or dig up oil that kills our environment for petroleum. See, that's what happens if you are ruled by the bottom, or to be ruled by the bottom, a tyrannical soul. See, we can even gain a deeper understanding of these kinds of running out of space because there's so much information. So here we have the tyrannic soul to be ruled by the bottom, to be ruled by materialism. The democratic soul to be ruled by activities, by others to others. What are the many saying? What's the popular opinion of the masses? How do I appeal to my voting base or my audience? Okay, to be ruled by only activity. How do I extract the most profits? Oligarchic soul. To be ruled only by the blueprints of the physical world, How do I become known as the most famous or the coolest? Democratic. But to be ruled by our intended purpose, aristocratic. See, not exactly, but similar. Some like, some different. So all we did was just look at these 4 divisions of unordered souls and related it to the other things on the map to gain some further insight. Isn't this fun? So what are we doing? We're understanding the kinds of human souls that are out there, which is important because you come and go through all of these different souls, but also so do your friends. Don't you want to help them? So do all people in the world. Don't you want to understand the world? But yourself, most importantly. The virtues that we are here to practice as we go through this process. The causes that you can answer any why question with. The dialectic that we're here to master. Both in its homogeneous and heterogeneous forms. So self to other, self to self, self to others, that applies to everything. But in description form, definition, demonstration, division, conclusion. The cognitive functions, what we have, like you are a character, you have abilities. Don't you want to know what your abilities are? Well, you can have knowing, you can have understanding, but you can also have the distortion of those things, belief, which you get from activities in childhood, in school, at Sunday school, in church. That's always division. Belief is always divided against itself. You have to accept certain limitations. Never read Harry Potter, only marry other Mormons, kill all the Muslims, sacrifice your life for dear leader, that kind of horse shit. No sex before marriage, all that kind of crap. But you're also told to kill those who, or be opposed to, or exile those who aren't Mormon. But so you're in a division against others, so you're always other from others. We're always different. The Jews need a special secret Jewish state. We can't have a human dignity and all human needs met and the meaning of life cherished for everyone, because we're the special people. We are the Jews. We need Israel, and we need to kill all the other non-Israelis and genocide the Palestinians. Yes, that's what we need. Always in division. Now, I'm just picking Jewish. You can pick any religion because that's what religion is. That's what all belief is. They are always in division, or they are always other from others, and they learn it not from understanding or knowing. They are in an activity opposed to understanding and knowing. See, we're gaining insight about the cognitive function of belief that's the cause of all human problems and suffering, ourselves and those around us, by using this map. That's the blueprint. We're using the blueprints. But it's the blueprints for everything. It's the instruction manual of the video game of life. Isn't it interesting? Oh my word. I think it's super interesting. I think it's so interesting. It's so interesting that we can understand all of the things. We can understand all of the things. It's interesting.
Dead-eyed, and I don't use this kind of terminology lightly. Dimwits.
Only a dead-eyed dimwit wouldn't find it interesting.
Do a poggers.
So we do a poggers.
No, that was a good decision. That was an inherently good decision.
See, I knew it. So we can understand all of the things. We can understand our problems. We can understand our purpose. We can understand. That's understanding. It's fun. Understanding is fun. Understanding is fun. That sounds like that would be a poster in a primary school in a like late 80s movie. Understanding is fun. And there's like an apple doing a thumbs up or something. Or an owl. Or some like an elephant saying, understanding is fun. But that's fun. Do a thing with the hands. Look. Where's my... If I do this, no. If I go like this. There we go. Understanding is fun. Understanding is wicked. Wee. But it is.
Absolutely gooped.
Hey. So, we have materialism, which is you are always other from the self. So if you could put as self mind, because materialism, or formerly it's strict dualism. Which means there is no mind. So strict dualism refers to the dualism between mind and body. That's the two things that modern philosophers struggle with. Ooh, what is the mind-body connection? Because they're in this thing. And people who say, well, there is no mind, or we can't know the mind, or there is no self, or there is no enlightenment, or you can't know the meaning of life, or you can't remember who you were before you were born, all that sort of stuff. The strict dualism, no connection between yourself and mind. But notice, you could use this. You are always other from self. You never know yourself. All you can do is be a cog in the capitalist machine. Or you can just be another brick in the wall. Which is neat because you could make art this way. So hey, if you want to make an art about the dangers of strict dualism or materialism, we're all just physical stuff, we're all just dust in the wind, or rocks in space, or reductionism, there is no mind, we're just chemical squirting, then you could tell a story about some person who's always other than some other. Some more meaningful thing. So they're always other from their beloved. They're never the same. They never reach their true love. Or you might say, hey, we're just material stuff. Dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind. So you could take that song from Bob Dylan, I think, and add the logos in, make it meaningful. Or Pink Floyd. All in all, we're just another brick in the wall. Bricks. Because we're all material. We're all other than self. We never reach our goal. We don't need no education. Doo-doo-doo. Doo-doo-doo. We're always other from our own meaningful goals. We're stuck in this indoctrination machine that makes us other from our goals. Or another brick in the wall. See? That's the fun. It's the fun of understanding. So cognitive functions, but now we're looking at what would it be like with the ideal. Now, here's where you can have some real fun. You could say, hang on a second. What's the difference? We've been saying the difference is self. Materialism other than self. Or ousia other than mind. Or logos. So those are the three that you could play with. So you can make a list for any of these things that has the presence of what you might say as understanding, knowledge, and self, or logos, ousia, and self, the three good parts, the first three hypotheses of Parmenides. So let's use the word logos. I think logos is a good one because that's what we're here to learn. Logos allows us to reach mind, allows us to reach self. So logos is really the key one. We're following the logos in understanding. We're following the logos in doing our job. So let's say we were a let's just we need to see, we've seen so much, and you can just keep going on this list because it's the paradigm. So this list is the paradigm, the paradigmatic cause we're building. So let's put the causes on the board one more time. We have the first. What happened to our spammer?
Further fill the internet with spam and AI slop.
They were blocked by my spam bot, but I can't press this button.
Who's an AI guy?
And I can't go.
What the hell's wrong with you people? You sick freaks.
Sick. First and final.
Fucking bitch, pussy ass fucker.
I'm a human. I don't listen to robots.
I don't listen to robots. First and final cause. The paradigmatic paradigm, or the model. The instrumental cause. The activity cause, and the material cause. Just so we have it, so we can go make another list. Now, as we've seen, that this reflects the structure of the dialectic too, but the dialectic has two categories. What if the thing exists and what if it doesn't? So exploring beauty, you create a universe. What if beauty does exist? What would you say about itself? How does it function? What's the effect of that function? How do those being affected then relate back to beauty? But what if beauty didn't exist? What if it wasn't an eidos? What if metaphysics didn't exist? What if the materialists were right? Oh, I don't even want to say that because don't think that that's weird and gross. To accept that, you have to reject everything we've been doing for like years on this channel and everything we've read and thought. So it can't be the case that materialism is right. So I think it's because I've had people say, hey, say to someone, you shouldn't be Nazi. And they say, actually, have you ever thought about what if we're right? What if the Nazis are right? Is that what you're saying? Maybe I should think about what if we're right? What if the materialists are right?
Kant's a little fucking bitch.
Well, Kant's a little bitch, actually. So, don't like saying that. But what if there was a universe where beauty didn't exist as in the realm of being? It was just a physical thing. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, that kind of stuff. It's just an image, it's just a shape and color. It's just a marketing campaign by Coca-Cola, that kind of crap. Or it's just biochemical, it's just trying to get you to mate with this species or something. The kind of crap you learn in modern universities because of materialism. All beauty is a trick of your brain chemistry to get you to mate with the sexiest of the species for survival of the fittest. Create that universe too. What if it didn't exist? What would you say about it? How does it function? So all of those examples that I just give would fit into one of these 4 categories. It functions so you can mate. The definition is it's just a biological trick. The division is it gets you to mate with the species. It gets your species to survive. It gets you to trick yourself to be attracted to beautiful landscapes, so you're around grassy plains and water so you can survive. And as a conclusion, you can make use of that to trick people into drinking Coca-Cola. There's a dialectic of what beauty is if it didn't exist. So there's 2 divisions or 2 categories or uses or 2 sections of the dialectic when you want to understand something, if it is and if it isn't. So, if we have been discovering that our first and final cause is to know the self through the unfolding of this intelligibility, the logos, and our return is through the logos. So when we return to the self, we have unfolded the logos that is one and in the pure self. So we've unfolded into experience all at once in the paradigm, unfolded into mastery through our functioning through understanding the dialectic, unfolded into the expression of the logos in all of its many different activities, including the pathologos activity in its negative sense too. Unfolding into the intelligibility of even our physical cosmos that we can understand through material science. Or, well, we don't want to look at material things. We can apply the paradigm to the physical cosmos so we can learn by using our mind, not just torturing monkeys until we come up with theories that can never be true. They will always change. A likely theory. But theories come in, scientific theories come in and out of style. In other words, we go from top down, not bottom up, like modern science. So, but what we do is, you can look at the physical world and realize there are patterns and wonder about the paradigm. That's true learning or true philosophy. True education. So, the unfolding of the inherent logos within the self as the first cause that we gain a mastery of through our journey through these causes, either the causes of the material world, the activity world, or so you can apply this to the physical dimensions or the dimensions of reality, or our journey through our cognitive functions, or our journey through developing of our virtues, or our journey through developing of kinds of souls, or our journey through mastering of the dialectic, or the journey through becoming the ideal material cause, like the ideal bricks, learning the ideal activities, becoming the ideal instrumental, becoming the ideal dialectician, becoming the ideal knower of the paradigm, the ideal guru with both, to become the ideal self. So it's reality is all an unfolding of the inherent intelligibility of the first and final cause, whatever this is, whatever this is, whatever this is, phronesis, whatever that is, to become the philosopher king or queen. So, human problems is due to a pathologos or a sick logos based on belief. So what you can do is do another set of terms. What would we be like as the ideal building, as a metaphor for the soul, building the ideal self, the ideal soul, self, let's say self. If it is or if it isn't. If what is or isn't. The thing we are literally here, the meaning of life. Everything is unfolding the logos of self and is returning through the mastery of logos of self. That's true understanding. Well, that's true understanding as the instrumental, true knowing as the paradigm, true activity others to others through philosophical midwifery. Dream analysis. dialectical reflection, through becoming the ideal soul. So you could say the development of these virtues is only to get your butt on the seat to become a material cause as a pregnant party. Which is the person doing the dialectic on the chair. On the chair. The chair that you sit in when you're doing dream analysis and the dialectician is drawing your dream on the board, asking you questions, and you are reflecting and giving answers. That's the ideal material cause. Puzzled, curious, wondering, genuinely seeking with courage, temperance, wisdom, and justice. So genuinely seeking while keeping your cool, genuinely seeking the truth, courage, genuinely thinking to understand, wisdom, trying to do it in everything you do, justice, so you can know yourself, the authentic self, phronesis. So the virtues are to get your butt, or to create the preconditions for being the ideal material cause.
Wow. 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 Wow.
Wow, isn't that interesting? And we've been talking about that a lot because Socrates said in the book we just read, I don't say that I'm here to suffer for the sins of mankind, to save the ignorant weirdos who are stupid and not doing their job. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I've came prepared to accept whatever happens to me as I go on my way, exploring ideas and seeking among my fellow men their way to justice and truth. Seeking with our fellow men who are seeking justice and truth. And as Jesus put it, I am prepared to go through whatever is necessary for the sake of those who are striving for their own salvation. So in other words, there are preconditions to go through this journey of perfecting ourselves through the causes. The virtues are the preconditions. Doing your best to stay in the game no matter what and keep your cool no matter what. Temperance. Desiring the logos. Seeking the logos. Temperance. Seeking the logos in whatever you do, even though your pathologos feels true. It feels like common sense. All of the talking points the right-wingers and fascists use to justify their ignorance. It's just common sense. It's always been that way. It just feels true. Courage is, fuck that, I'm following the logos. Now, these upgrade, and you don't need courage once you see it for yourself, so it's easier to follow the logos in spite of your pathologos at the higher levels of development, but especially at the beginning, you need these. You need to be genuinely interested in understanding and opening your mind to confirming your understanding in that experience of knowledge or nous. Because if you don't give a shit about knowing reality, You don't give a shit about understanding what's true because you want to be a good loyal believer, a good loyal Mormon, a good loyal Jew, a good loyal Christian, a good loyal Protestant, a good loyal Nazi, a good loyal Trumpist. Then you're not going to fucking learn shit because you are savage, blindly loyal to the ignorance of your upbringing, which is always in division or opposed to what's good, universal, true for you and everyone and the life of your own fucking species. What do the Abrahamics want? To end the fucking world so Jesus comes back. That is a death cult. That's ignorance. That's injustice. If you're seeking harming people, ain't no way you are going to be open and receptive for your purpose to be sitting on that chair, reflecting on your dreams, reflecting on your problems, reflecting on your reading. So what are we becoming by practicing these virtues? We're becoming the ideal material cause, which is the ideal because wrong color. Or if the logos is, it's the dialectic if beauty is, but if the logos is. In other words, what makes us excellence is the presence or absence of the logos in everything we do. To become the material cause or the soul, a pregnant soul, the soul is the material cause. Notice, logos isn't about your physical body. Yes, it has an equivalent to the physical body. You can see the dialectic and the logos play out through medicine, etc., etc. But logos applies to mind and self. So we're looking at the soul. The ideal material condition of you is the ideal soul. That's what we're most interested in. So this is the next stage of understanding. We've talked about understanding being a reflecting on causes. Tick, got the causes there. We've been talking about understanding involving a list of terms. So we've got here a list of terms. We've been talking about understanding being seeing the hierarchical arrangement of the terms. Tick to that as well. We've been talking about understanding is to reflect upon the paradigm, which means this hierarchical understanding of these terms within an ordered list applies to everything because it's the paradigm. So you can have not just ordered terms, you have sets, sets of building a house, physical expression, causes, self and other, DDDC, cognitive functions, virtues, kinds of souls, sets. We've been talking about understanding as having, when you have the ideal of those ordered terms, they give rise to a higher level of functioning. There's actually two of those jumps here. There's these three builder building bricks to the blueprints. Blueprints is on a different level. It's not physically real, it's a map. You can have the paradigm in your head if you want, or the blueprints in your head if you want. But again, and then when you have, so there's a division here, or the paradigm sits above. So we can look at the cognitive functions and say, hey, materialism is a kind of ignorance that people have in the physical world. Belief is what you get from your physical world. Understanding you can use in the physical world, but knowledge or nous is non-physical. It's a literal separation from your physical senses and body of your soul to experience mind itself, or oneness, or divine luminosity. The more that you experience and the greater depth that you experience and the more that you understand that experience, the greater knowledge you can keep in memory of the blueprints to function better as a builder or dialectician or understander. But it's a different level. Equally so, when all of the parts come together, there's a different level even beyond that. So there's two jumps here. The jump from the physical to mind and the jump from mind to self. Reflecting what we've been seeing in our map of reality. See, whole and part, the Venn diagram, same and other, or self and other, to use the dialectic terms. If you're just other, you're in the lesser realm of physical appearances, where you get your model is belief and your activity is materialism. That's human ignorance. The overlap, where you are the whole of all parts, or the paradigm we can now call it, because we have the word paradigmatic cause, is reality or being or the greater. Knowing and understanding, the two together, wisdom. The art of the dialectic uses that, and it's our purpose. This is what we learn and nurture, the dialectic about self and reality. Men, I am really behind looking at that whole blackboard. We post all of the streams on YouTube, but if there's anything that stands out that you're curious about, feel free to ask a question. But yeah, the blackboard's got a lot of good stuff. So there's the jump from the physical world, the lesser, to the realm of mind, and then another jump to the ousia and logos, or the model and activity of the ultimate dimension of reality, the self. Reflecting also in our causes. Just save that in case my computer crashes again. The bricks, building, and builder are all physical stuff, but there's a jump from physical to mind. The blueprints exist in mind. You can draw them on the board like we're doing, but it's not physical. But it has scope over everything physical. Just as in the virtues, justice you only get if you are keeping your cool, you are seeking the logos, and keeping in mind that the pathologos is the most dangerous thing. So seeking the logos even though it doesn't feel normal. Being ruled by your development of understanding and knowing. Once you are ruled in this way, being ruled by the logos, seeking the logos and desiring the logos, in everything you do, you give rise to that higher virtue called justice. To do your intended function, seek the logos, follow the logos. That's our function as human beings. That's our purpose at all times. And if you do it at all times, you can give rise to the experience and state of self, which is the ultimate goal. So there's two levels of jumps there. Just as there are two levels of jumps, bricks, building, and builder, to the blueprints. And there's a jump from when you have all of them together, you've fulfilled the blueprints, you've applied it to the physical world, you've got the ideal of each of those causes. Billy has a place to live. Or from the paradigmatic, there's a jump to the paradigmatic and a jump from the paradigmatic to the final cause. So you could say there's a jump from looking at applying these causes physically. So prior to becoming the ideal material cause, sitting on that seat as a pregnant soul, pregnant with an idea, either an idea about your problems that you can address in the dialectic of midwifery, pregnant about your question about your reading, your experience of reading in understanding, or your experiences of knowledge. That's dialectic. Puzzle about your dreams, which applies to both. That's the best one, because dreams will tell you about your development of understanding and knowledge and your problems. So that could be an upgrade from the causes applied to the physical world. So there's our physical dimension. Meaning you could say, you have to be on the chair as the material cause to participate in the meaning of life, the dialectic. But you could also say to become a pregnant soul is the final cause within the physical learning. In other words, everything that you do in your life is to become pregnant with a question so that you can then become the material cause. That's the idea of hyparxis. Hyparxis is the top of the lower level is the bottom of the next. Hyparxis. So we could complete this out. So you have to have some sort of model or paradigm. I'll say model for now. Model. Some sort of functioning or instrumental. In doing some sort of activity. According to some sort of material. In the physical dimension. So your purpose in your physical all your physical activities seems to be, according to the map, to finally get yourself on the chair. Or as a pregnant soul. So they're the same, a pregnant soul on the chair. Meaning you could start with care of the body, because if you're struggling with illness, that can distract you from some sort of activity. Now these are just questions. You can play this game. You play like you feel. I'm going to have a go, but you do your own. Yours will probably be better than mine. You're going through it. Have a go. You have to be caring for your body, so you're not distracted from health issues or whatever. So you can do some sort of activity of what? Reading? Reading? Reading with the stream? With the podcast? You ain't going to see the significance on getting on that chair. You aren't going to give birth to a puzzle about your world unless you are reading the right material. You can't magic your way into being a pilot without reading a aviation textbook. You can't magic your way into being a doctor without reading a medical textbook. You've got to be reading something. Instrumental. What are you doing? Talking with your friends? Does that map with our understanding of theology? In that, can we say you have to be reading, which is Polo, to get the terms or the logos? You have to be talking with your friends to bring it together. Aphrodite, which is your reflection, which is what we're doing right now. We're reflecting on the terms. All of these terms are from the book. Well, actually, from the book and a couple of the other books we've read prior to this one, but that's okay. For now. So yeah, Aphrodite and Apollo. You won't bring it together into a beautiful whole that inspires you and gives you power to keep going unless you're talking about it. And I understand it's difficult to find people to talk about what's meaningful with in this level, because our education system is in the tradition of the Christians and the Latins, Emperor Justinian Fuckface McGee, to whom we say
Kant would say some fucking bullshit.
who gave rise to Kant in the modern academic tradition.
Would you just blow in from Stupid Town?
Who blew in from Stupid Town.
They're completely lying to you. They're
And
completely
they're
lying.
lying to us. So, you know, it's rare to find people who are in the game. So, you're gonna have to look out for people who are naturally gifted, rare beams of light in the world. But if you do find people like that, or people with a good heart and good head, you can talk to them about your reading, which is the reflection, because you need to be reading Apollo. That's the god that represents philosophy or reading. Aphrodite comes hand in hand. They go together, love and logos, because when you reflect upon it with a loved one or a friend, you can bring the pieces into a whole. That's inspiring. Oxherding pictures. Yes, that's where we're heading. You can Oxherding pictures are potentially where we're heading as the next part of the book, but we're doing a reflection on what understanding is first. So we're getting the paradigm of our meaning of life and our purpose and the skill we're here to master, so that when we apply it to the Oxherding pictures, which are a series of 10 pictures that depict this very journey we've been outlining, we can compare the Oxherding pictures to the actual paradigm to see how close they got, to see if they missed anything else out, or maybe they've added something that we haven't seen. It's a win-win.
Kant's a little fucking win-win-win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win. So, right, so you have to be taking care of your body, or maybe tuning into the stream. Engaged in some reading, Apollo. Instrumental cause, what's your functioning? Talking about it, reflecting on it. Hey, you have to get the parts from the reading, but you have to bring them together into a whole. That's a kind of logos and ousia, according to some paradigm. What's the paradigm that we're learning? Well, we can jump across to Apollo and Aphrodite come together to reach the hyparxis of Hermes. If you're reading, seeing the parts, and you're bringing it together into a beautiful whole that inspires you to keep going, Apollo and Aphrodite, eventually you reach Hermes. Hermes is the dialectic that has the god with wings on his shoes, so you can fly to Zeus as quick as you can. Reach our goal. Not through millions of reincarnations, but in this one. Don't have to go through cycles of ignorance and suffering over and over again until you wake up to your purpose to master the dialectic. So, learning about the dialectic, which is the model for our physical world. It's the model for music, it's the model for building a house, it's a model for everything that we do in our physical world. You can be looking for the model of the dialectic. And you have to be learning about the dialectic, because only then are you learning that it's the meaning of life. To participate in and to master yourself. It's both. The captain of the basketball team makes others, raises them up. That's LeBron James's arc. He was a good individual player, but he had to learn to be a good leader of the team to make other players as good as him over his journey in the basketball game. So, if you're not learning about the dialectic, how can you see that the dialectic applies to two things? Your problems. How can you be pregnant? How can you be curious about your problems and blocks? Physical, mental, relationship, all problems. How can you recognize that they are all in principle understandable and solvable through the dialectic? And how can you also wake up to realize that the dialectic is also the method of learning, the method of evolution, and the method of spirituality? It's all one thing. So if you want to remove your problems or suffering or reach your goals and have happiness, you have to participate in the dialectic. But how can you be open to that? We call it being a pregnant soul, or being a open, curious, soul with a question. Run out of room here. Let's move everything down. Because only when you are genuinely open, genuinely curious, genuinely seeking understanding, open, curious soul, seeking truth, have to be seeking truth. Oops, move this down even further. I think everyone has their own dialectic unconsciously. Right, so we are all engaged in the dialectic in a negative sense because everyone from childhood learns a false definition about themselves and reality. That's false, harmful, the cause of your problems and suffering, because it then functions or demonstrates itself in your activity, your fundamental idea of yourself becomes your psyche, your state of mind, becomes how you relate to the world, that you then relate to in all of your areas of your life, your relationships, your daydreams, your reading, your play, your fun, everything you do, all your divisions are all a manifestation of the same false functioning or projection. You project your problems into the world, you project what's not there. You're also blind from seeing what is there. That's interpretation. So it's that state of mind from a false definition of self and reality that causes your interpretation on the world, that manifests in every area of your life or division, that ends in a conclusion that's stagnant. Your conclusions are always, I guess I was right to begin with. I guess I sucked all along, just like I thought. I guess I could never have that goal like I believed I did from childhood. I guess I'm just a bad person like my mummy and daddy told me. Yes, we are all engaged in the dialectic in a harmful and negative sense. That's the cause of all human problems and suffering. And because of Peter's principle, the Pathologos Peter's principle, unless you are doing what we are saying, perfecting our life in the ideal material cause, activity cause, instrumental cause, and model cause in our life, which involves learning the dialectic, that's a jump. Only if you're taking care of the body so that you can read as an activity, so you can function by reflecting on that activity, can you yourself give rise to the insight that the dialectic is our purpose. And as you said, we're always doing the dialectic in a harmful way. So the anti-dialectic is the cause of all human suffering. If you're not doing that, all you will do is spend your life looking for, like a zombie, hunting for brains to eat. That ain't good, but it's the only thing you can do. That's fate. Looking for opportunities to play out your pathologos ignorance on others with impunity. You'll want to be a parent so you can do your bullshit to your kids because you think it's the good. You think it's real. You think it's true. You become a CEO or a capitalist where you can inflict it on your... Ever notice that the people with all the power and wealth in the world, they are not solving world hunger, they're not solving climate change, they're not solving wealth inequality, they're actually doing harm? It's like suffering is the point. That's the Pathologos Peter principle. Peter's principle applies to jobs where you are good at your job because you understand it, you get a promotion. You're good at that, you get a promotion. Now you're at a job that you suck at, no promotion. So you're stuck at the level in your career that you are incompetent at. Similarly to the pathologos, you find yourself seeking an opportunity where you can play out your incompetence or your pathologos, your ignorance, on others with impunity. Ideally, religion and politics, because those are two professions where you don't have to show a demonstration of understanding like you do with flying a plane or building a house or doing surgery. You have to show an understanding. You also have to show a knowing of the model of the healthy body, the model of how a plane works ideally. And you don't have to always function to benefit those under your care. A pilot has to care for everyone on his plane. A surgeon has to heal all his patients. Politicians say, fuck that. I don't have any understanding or knowledge. I believe in Jesus because I can manipulate the beliefs and ignorance of the people. And fuck helping everyone. I want to harm people. I want to bomb children. I want to starve the subjects so I can exploit them. I can see them suffering the same way I suffered under my parents. That's the savage and barbaric nature of human beings against our own species, because we haven't acknowledged the nature of belief as a cognitive function that does harm, or as you're saying, the anti-dialectic. We do not demand understanding and knowing from every spiritual authority, putting an end to religion, which is to be bound by ignorant belief or faith, and putting an end to the incompetence of our political structure. Scammers and liars. Hey, politicians, you can't trust any of them. Ha 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 ha. Don't just laugh at that. Do something about that. Why the fuck do we not trust any goddamn politician? Because we know they are liars. And we know they don't care for us. And we know they manipulate through belief. So yeah, everyone's doing a dialectic in a negative way. Therefore, to be moral, we have a moral duty to go through this process. We have a moral duty to care for our physical body enough so that we can read along with the stream, or read Pierre Grimes and Socrates, Balboa translations of Plato. Talk with our friends about it, which is a reflection. There's our Apollo and Aphrodite, reading and reflection, Logos and Ousia, seeing the parts and bringing them together in a whole. And only in doing that can you yourself wake up, not because I'm saying it or because you're believing me, but because you can see the nature and significance of the dialectic. Either the negative causing your problems that you can, and also see the significance of the dialectic to reflect upon yourself, find your own unsuspected injustice you're inflicting on yourself and anyone you have power over. but to recognize all human problems are in principle solvable. No need for fucking prisons, or murder, or war, or genocide, or any sort of goddamn punishment or savagery towards ourselves. Stop beating yourself up and others. Stop beating up others. That's the dialectic. You can only put an end to that kind of savagery, ignorance, and perpetuating of violence and suffering on yourself and others if you wake up to the significance of the dialectic. The dialectic is the model that all physical beings who have awakened language and reflection, ousia and logos, are here to do. That's what makes us different from cabbages and caterpillars. We can reflect, Aphrodite, ousia. We can understand, Apollo and logos, read. And when we do those two things, we go from logos to ousia to the dialectic, which makes use of both. That's our awakening. That's the meaning of life. That's our spiritual evolution. And only when you realize this can you then become an open, give it a different color. Let's go purple. Let's go to this color. Become an open, curious soul, genuinely seeking truth, not to be Peter's principle, not to be able to do your bullshit, but you actually want truth, the good. You actually want to do good. You don't want to watch people suffer because it puts you in daddy's chair the same way he watched you suffer. Trump, Musk, Putin, Hitler, Netanyahu, Bezos, Zuckerberg, all of those people, that's all they're doing. They're not seeking the good. They're seeking to watch the suffering. That's the sadistic nature of belief. It takes the oppression of others as the mark of knowing. So you have to be seeking the good and the real. To give birth to, or to become pregnant with, because you're not giving birth to yet, you need to go through the dialectic to give birth to what you're pregnant with. A question or puzzle. That's not how you spell puzzle. About self and reality, your problems, or your dreams, or your highest functioning or purpose. Running out of space. Let's move this down one more time. Why? Because those are the four things that you can be puzzled about, and the four things that reflect the dialectical nature of the dialectic itself. So the dialectic has four parts, and there are four aspects of the dialectic. The truth, self of reality, removing what's false, your problems. You have to be reflecting on your dreams to get help for both. Let's put and. But also sharing it, or how you can function in your ideal way, which is another way of saying your purpose or destiny. or your purpose. Only when you are genuinely open, curious soul seeking the truth, the good, the real, which is what we've been calling in the text the triad of the soul, you can become pregnant with a question or puzzle about self and reality, about your problems or injustices, about your dreams, or about how to function in your ideal way, which reflects the dialectical aspects of the dialectic. So the dialectic has the 4 parts. But the dialectic on the dialectic, you can apply the dialectic to truth, that's philosophy, apply it to solving what's false, midwifery, both dream analysis and sharing it, which is a kind of functioning with all of it, sharing it, a functioning through that ideal excellence of the dialectic. So, that's the final cause of the dialectic seems to be a lot of different forms in the same pattern. Absolutely, that's it. That's the paradigm. So you could say the dialectic is the paradigm or model, the paradigmatic cause. So using the builder, Billy needs a place to live. That's the first cause. He then has to get blueprints. That's the model. That applies to every aspect of the house, the bathroom, the garage, the wiring, that the builders always reflect on in their activity, making use of the skill of building that they apply to the physical bricks. So the material is the lowest thing. So you could say that the dialectic is the blueprints, because it's a structure, it's a 4 or 5, because there's 5. Now, the dialectic has 4 that we know about: the definition, the demonstration, the division, and the conclusion. But you're right, it applies to everything because it's the paradigm of all understandable things in reality. Music, building, development of the soul, cognitive functions. There are different ways of thinking that we go through. Strict dualism or materialism. Belief. Some people are just believers. They believe whatever mummy and daddy says and whatever Fox News says. People who develop understanding, they want to think for themselves. They want to see the map for themselves. So understanding is perfected when you see the map or the paradigm. To behold the paradigm of the logos or the paradigm of the dialectic all at once is the awakening of the eye of your soul, divine luminosity or knowing, knowledge or nous. Functioning, understanding it, reflecting on that experience in the afterglow or wherever you can or prior to experiencing it, allows you to understand its parts. Therefore, you can use the paradigm or model of reality, the model of beauty, the model of justice, according to its parts, like a builder, in your functioning, like that's understanding. So that's the skill of the dialectic. So there's the paradigm of the dialectic in knowing everything. There's the activity, there's the skill or the functioning. That's the dialectic as the dialectician. There's the activity that you can do now, the activity cause, not building a house, but doing the dialectic with your friends, doing dream analysis, doing philosophical midwifery. On material. Only the material ain't bricks anymore. So bricks are kind of a low division as well. Because bricks have no mind. Well, technically everything is mind, but bricks don't have any consciousness. Well, okay. Pretty much, generally speaking. But the builder makes use of intelligence, and so does the activity of building. So it's a progression up intelligence. The bricks are kind of on their own down at the bottom. So there are divisions within this list. Or a hierarchy. Whereas the blueprints are only mind, even though you can draw them if you wanted to. And of course, Billy needing a place to live transcends all of that. So there are key divisions here. So yeah, you could say, you could apply the dialectic to each of these causes. What's the model of the dialectic? What's it like to be the dialectician? What's the skill that you can learn to function in the activity of the dialectic? How do you dialectic your friends? How do you understand your dreams? How do you understand your friends' dreams? Help them understand their dreams too. That's very important, understanding your dreams. And finally, how do you become a material cause receptive for the activity of the dialectic, to the instrumental dialectician who follows the paradigm or model of the dialectic that you can go through to reach your final cause, which is also the reason for the dialectic unfolding into reality, to know the self through the dialectic with all of these in your back pocket. Imagine returning to the self. If the self is the first cause of all of this, it contains it inherently in a pure, seemingly inexpressible way. But in the same way, you don't see yourself, but if you look at yourself in the mirror, you can see bits of yourself. You can see you see through your eyes, but you don't see your eyes. You can in the mirror. So long as you recognize that what you see in the mirror is the paradigm, it ain't you. So even the divine luminosity of your mind knowing itself as the model of the dialectic, everything all at once, the logos as the paradigm, that's still not you. That's a reflection of you in a lower dimension, just like a mirror is a reflection of you in a 2-dimension, but you're 3-dimensional. You have everything you're seeing, but so much more. And in a higher way. Your mirror reflection doesn't have will, doesn't have intelligence, doesn't have your hopes and dreams. But you can learn about yourself by looking at yourself in the mirror. That's the reflection of the first cause into the paradigm that gets reflected in a kind of creating, functioning through a kind of activity in the creation of the physical cosmos. That's the unfolding of the causes. Our job is to go through it in the other direction, become receptive as a material cause, bricks to be worked with in the meaning of life, the activity that we need to be, the activity we should be doing as our purpose. So causes are also why. Why do we exist? Or what's the reason? What's the reason for us existing? Or why do we exist? Oh, easy, dialectic. What does that mean? Oh, let me break it down for you. The reason is to become bricks to be worked with in the dialectic, which is that first physical dimension. You've got a physical body you've got to take care of, so you can be reading along with the stream. That's Apollo, learning the logos. But you have to actually be yourself doing it. You have to be putting it into nurturing what you're learning, demonstrating what you're learning, talking with friends, reflecting, as we're doing today. A reflection episode, it seems. That's Usia, that inspires you. That's bringing the parts together into a whole. That's Apollo and Aphrodite who work hand in hand to reach Hermes. Ultimately, in your reading, you'll see it always comes back to the dialectic. Whether it's Usia and Logos, questions and answers. What makes use of questions and answers? The dialectic. Therefore, you've seen the model of everything that unfolds in your ideal functioning, all your activities, and why you take care of the body, and even how you take care of the body. You can use the dialectic to do your nutrition routine or build houses safely, or your gym workouts. There's a logos in that. Medicine, there's a logos to medicine. There's an understandability to physical health. But ultimately, you don't care for your body so you can care for the body. You can help people as a doctor or nurse or whatever, and to be helped as well. But to do what? Take care of the body for what reason? To read. which makes use of our minds and understanding, ousia and logos. So read along with the stream, talk with your friends, eventually discover the dialectic so that you can put all of those pieces of the house together, the bricks, the building, the builder, and the blueprints for the first and final cause, the reason for going through all this in the first place. Why do I care about my health? A nihilist will say, there is no meaning to life. I don't care. And they'll be depressed. I don't want to care for my body and my health. What's the point? This is the point. I don't want to be a vain person like those Instagram models. Why should I go to the gym? Exactly. They don't have a point. They're stuck here. They're stuck at step one. Their first and final cause is the material cause. They're upside down. They're lovers of images, lovers of appearance. The reason you go to the gym or whatever, or eat well or take care of yourself is so you can read and talk and discover the purpose of the whole thing, the dialectic. Also, you can reach the first cause of all of this. So, first cause, it's first and final cause. So, also that you can become an open and curious soul, genuinely seeking the truth of self and reality, the good, the real. To become pregnant with a question or a puzzle that you're carrying about the true nature of self and reality, about your problems, about your dreams, or about your ideal functioning or purpose. So, first cause, it's good to keep this in mind as an opinion or a right opinion or a likely hypothesis at all times, because it can help you take care of your body. Keep it as the first cause. Why am I taking... Well, I don't want to take care of my body. But keep in mind, there's a purpose. But I don't want to be a vain Instagram model. I know that's not the purpose. Keep in mind the first cause. You're giving rise to your... not the material condition of the body. The first and final cause is also the hyparxis. In other words, to be an open, curious soul with a question is the best thing you can be in the physical world, but it's also the lowest thing that you can be in the realm of logos. So you've upgraded, you've leveled up. That's the idea of hyparxis, because now your material condition isn't all that stuff. The bricks that are being worked on, you're on the chair. You're sitting on the chair, either in the classroom or the coffee shop or the park bench, with a dialectician as the bricks to be worked with by the builder, building a strong vessel for this true health through physical activity. Yeah. Which is just the lowest. The physical activity is just the bottom part. It's easier to read. It's easier to tune into my awesome streams when you don't have to worry about, a sore spleen. And we have fun reading. The book's a banger. The book's a goddamn banger. It's the best book. Seriously. And it's makes your conversation with friends better too. You're not gossiping about who Tom Cruise is dating or whatever. You can talk about all these insights about the nature of self-reality that apply to any dimension. So it's not just a learning for this lifetime. Because it's the paradigm, it applies to any dimension, any lifetime, any cosmos, any multiverse. If you find yourself transported to an alien galaxy, you'd ask the same questions. Hey, who around here is into the dialectic? Who can I play with? Who can I reflect with? Who can I read with? You guys reading the Parmenides over here? Have you heard of the Parmenides? Are you reading it? How are you guys with your understanding of the dialectic of dreams? You'd ask the same questions because it's the game. It's the only real game in town. And we can understand why it's the only real game in town by understanding the causes, or what are causes? Why? I have seen Idiocracy. Why do we exist? What's our reason? Why do we exist? Oh, because you got a physical body. That's not a good answer. Well, no, it is a good answer. Well, it's one answer. You're here because of your physical body. Okay, that's okay. That, of course, if I didn't have a physical body, I wouldn't be here. Sure. Or you're here because your brother died of cancer, but you survived. That's why you're here. Yeah, that is an answer to a why question. Cause is a cause. But go a bit deeper. Oh, well, you're here because you're here to learn how to read. Really? Yeah. Do you think dogs can read? Do you think caterpillars can read? Don't you think the more human beings read, isn't it? Don't you benefit? By the way, don't all fascists and religious authorities ban reading? Yeah, they do. And they're the cause of human suffering and violence and evil, and not evil, but infliction of the worst. Yeah? We're here to read. Oh. Is that all? No, you're also here to reflect on your reading. Otherwise, why am I reading for? So these are why questions. Why do we exist? To read. To read and talk. But why do we go through that process? Oh, so you can discover the dialectic is a thing that exists. To discover, in principle, all human problems we have for a reason and are solvable. So they're never a clip-chimping excuse. The savage, ignorant fuckheads of the world to whom we say,
Kant's a little fucking bitch.
Kant's a bitch, and also...
You moron. You absolute fucking buffoon. You goddamn idiot.
Goddamn idiots only look for people making mistakes so they can justify inflicting suffering as punishment or teaching a lesson because they are zombies stuck in the ignorance and injustice of their parents who did it to them. And they got it from their parents and from their parents and from their parents. The cycle of ignorance and violence that goes all the way back to caveman times. But to discover that all problems are solvable and we have for a reason, so never feel bad about them, never feel shame or guilt, and never inflict punishment or believe in things like sin or hell, that garbage, never fucking ever, because we all have them for a reason, reflecting perfectly the learning in this lifetime and through many lifetimes, and they are all in principle given to us for a reason. That reason is learning. All problems are solvable. And that we get also from Homer, because Achilles was the worst person and he went through this process and became the best. So why are we here? What's the reason? To learn about the dialectic. That's a game changer, right? So you can see a division between model, the material caring for the body. That's the lowest thing. It's kind of in a class below, just like bricks are below building and builder because they've got no intelligence. So the body is even lower. But say talking and reading is a step above. So there's a division here between the causes. But also there's a huge division between also talking and reading, reflecting and reading, Aphrodite and Apollo, and discovering that all problems are fucking solvable, and we are here to A, solve all our problems, and B, by going through that dialectic to solve problems, we learn the dialectic that we can apply to the actual nature of self and reality, not the cause of our problems, the false beliefs and images about self and reality that we identify with. So not only can we purify our problems, but we can reach our highest excellence, know the self, but by going through these causes, when we return to our final cause of knowing the self, we also have seen ourself in the mirror We know the paradigm of ourself in the logos of self all at once, mind knowing itself as divine luminosity. We also have the skill of the dialectic under our belt, understanding. We've also practiced using it in our activities, others to others, in the activity of dream analysis, midwifery, dialecticians, and sharing it with others through mythology. And we've learned what it takes to become the ideal, receptive bricks, only not bricks, souls. Receptive, open, curious souls to go through this process with. So we have all of this in our nature as we return to the self. So learning that is a game changer. So you could say that's the model that we wake up to going through this physical dimension set of causes. Neat. Okay, so the dialectic exists. All human problems are solvable, and there is a knowable paradigm for justice, truth, and reality. So it isn't just a matter of opinion like religion says. It isn't just a matter of belief and opinion like politicians say. We don't just have to do as we're fucking told and pick between two evils. No, we can demand the paradigm, the truth. We don't have to accept suffering and injustice to myself or to others. That's a game changer. That's the step up. Just as care of the body is below talking and reading, less intelligence, so this more intelligent is below discovering that there is a paradigm or model for intelligence itself. That's discovering the dialectic. There's a question for what's the meaning of life, or why do we exist? What's the reason? What's the why? But we're still not satisfied. Okay. The meaning of life is to discover there's a dialectic. For what end? And you mean the final cause? Or the first cause, because you keep it in mind as you go through this development, so you can keep on track, keep strong, keep your courage up, keep your cool. What's the end? So, having heard about the dialectic, you can yourself become questioned or puzzled, be pregnant with a puzzle about your own problem, about your own dreams, about your own self and reality, or your own ideal functioning or sharing of that. Philosophy, midwifery, dream analysis, and sharing or mythology. Ultimately, it all points back to the ideal self and reality, or your false image of self and reality. So, self and reality or problems are the two big ones. Dreams help for both. Being able to function ideally is a consequence. So, what's the meaning of life? Why are we here? To become pregnant about our puzzle. Because everyone's naturally, you don't have to get a koan from a guru or a mantra from some Hare Krishna or accept some beliefs from some Buddhist. No. You are naturally curious about your own self and the world that you're in and in your own mind, and you're naturally curious about your problems because it sucks to be in your problems, and it sucks to be sad, and it's great to be happy. It's just that simple. We just live in a world ruled by ignorant belief and pathologos injustice that it takes a bit of reading in this channel and takes a bit of talking with, if you can find good people out there with good hearts and good heads, you can reflect, put words on your reading, share with others. It takes that reading and reflecting to discover the dialectic, to know, oh shit, I've got a problem. I shouldn't feel sad about it. I shouldn't take medicine about being it. I shouldn't say that I'm sick or I'm got some mental disorder.
No, you're not the one that's mentally unwell. You're brave.
You are crossing into new boundaries.
We're actually brave courage, and we're actually crossing new boundaries if we realize that our problems and our puzzles are for a reason. We need to be okay with being curious and puzzled. Be okay with not knowing. Give up the certainty of belief. Because we've learned about the dialectic. So notice, none of these answers to what's the meaning of life or why do we exist are wrong. Some are better than others, which is another way of saying you can hierarchically arrange them. It's not wrong that our job is to care for the body, just as our human race's job is to care for our planet and all life on this planet. That's another next stage in our evolution. Sure. If we don't, we go kaput. The end of the human race. If we don't see that our job is to be a caretaker of our physical planet, we go extinct. Just that simple. So all of this religious and political and capitalist bullshit against climate change or maximizing profits by hurting other people and the environment to save money, to feed more orphans into the capitalist, religious, orphan crushing machine, fucking garbage has to stop. Because we have to recognize the meaning of life is to care for the physical body and our physical planet. But notice, that's correct, but we can go even deeper. That's understanding, recognizing the hierarchical ordering of the terms. And using it is fun. It's fun.
What if a chimp had a cell phone? Who would he call?
I don't know who a chimp would call. Our job is also to self-remember. Exactly. That's another answer. But how do you remember? Can you remember if you're living in a world dying from pollution or if you're physically sick? Can you remember if you're not reading the necessary texts to give you the clues to solve the puzzle? In other words, if you're playing a video game, you have to look for the puzzle pieces in the game. You can't. Can you remember if you're sick and you're not focusing your attention on remembering, you're focusing your attention on how you're going to get your next meal? What are you going to remember? Remember where your lunch is? Remember where the donut shop is, where they throw the donuts out at 5 p.m.? And if you're not reading the texts that give you the clues to give birth to the puzzles, if you're not reading Balboa version of Plato or Pierre Grimes, what's the fourth way? Then how can you, hey, you can't win Resident Evil unless you're playing Resident Evil. Otherwise, you're just projecting your own parents' beliefs. Another dialectic that involves self-remember. Oh no, we're doing that. There's only one dialectic. It's just the dialectic. It's not a matter of opinion or belief. But what we are doing is understanding the causes and conditions for giving rise to remembering the nature of self. Because remembering the nature of self or reality is the paradigm or the cognitive function of knowledge. But again, you won't realize that unless you're reading the Phaedo. Or a text written by someone who has the mastery of the logos, who's gone through this process. Otherwise, you're just gathering opinions and beliefs from ignorant people, especially your parents and your society and your religion. And just reflecting that back to yourself. So you have to be, in other words, you can't learn medicine unless you're reading a medical textbook. You can't learn the logos unless you're reading a book written by a master of the logos. There are only a few around. The Balboa version translations of Plato give us Socrates' words. Pierre Grimes' works, he's a master of the logos. And in the book, we have looked at a bunch of different people, How far did Jesus get? 2 questions. How far did he get in his vision and understanding of the Logos? And how strong was his false belief or pathologos? Because every human being has a mixture of 2. He had a high experience. There's only one dialectic sense as a universal language. Sure. Structure of reality, language, logos. The word is logos. Logos involves reason, language, knowability. So in other words, you have to be reading. You can't just magic the ideas into your head. That's belief. But hey, you don't just read, you have to be reflecting on it, applying it to your world, practicing what you preach, demonstrating what you've been defining. You have to be talking about it. That's why it's good to have friends in the game. That's the stream.
The primary purpose of pools is not to murder. It is for enjoyment and cooling off.
So, you could say, our purpose is to take care of the body, yes, but keep going. Okay, the purpose is to read as well. Yes, but keep going. So maybe some people only get to reading. That's better than nothing. Hey, reflect. Find people to reflect with. Otherwise, all your reflection is going to be force-fed to you by your boss and the media and your parents and your family. Just all garbage. Zombie shit. Fake or shallow ousia. You're being told to eat brains every day. But again, what's the meaning of that? See, all of these answers are right, but there are depth. And also, you can, by understanding the whole paradigm or structure, you can specifically target your answers to meet people where they're at. So if no one has seen this, if you're talking to someone who hasn't seen the significance of reading a Logos text, being in the game means having your nose in a book. And what those books are, fundamentally Pierre Grimes and Balboa translations of Plato. Because we're just coming out of the Dark Ages. Since Socrates, we've been in the tradition of belief and ignorance based on Aristotle and Emperor Justinian, the Abrahamic religions. But we still have, we got them to work with. That's what we're reading here. Then you might say, hey, the meaning of life is to see the significance of reading and learn how to read. Not projecting, vomiting your own stupid ass opinions that you're carrying with you. No, to see what's there only. Not to add what isn't there or to be blind from what's there. So learning how to read. That's the meaning of life, learning how to read. But someone who's already seen that, okay. Yeah, but are you talking about it? I know a lot of people who've been reading, but as soon as the meeting ends, they think, okay, now I can switch it off and go back to my ignorance again. I can shut people down the way I was shut down by my parents. Someone says, hey, do you want to talk about this text? I'll say, fuck off. So you'll say the meaning of life is to learn how to talk. Reflect on what you're reading. Not gossip. Not play out your own pathologos injustice. Someone's interested. Oh, I can work with that. You care about something. Now I can crush you. That's what a bully does. You can't bully someone unless you know what they care about. You care about reading? Oh, okay. You suck. Ha 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 ha. Aren't I cool for shitting on what that person loves? Haters. Caustic people. They think it's funny to just piss on everyone. That's disgusting. But to that person, you can tell them, hey, the meaning of life is to realize that that's just what was done to you by your sick parents. You need to wake the fuck up and realize who they were by learning to dialectic them, define them, understand how they're functioning, understand the consequence of their functioning, go back to what you weren't able to apply the dialectic to because you were stuck with those ignorant people. And everyone will say, not my parents were different. Everyone says that. Maturity is waking up to the point that, no, everyone has had a problem and plays it out to their children. That's what it means to be human. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. Therefore, the meaning of life is to learn to reflect. Talk. Be open to talking. Don't ban someone from the chat if they're genuine. Don't kick them from the group if they're genuine. If they're interested in reading and understanding and reflecting on that understanding to see new insights, don't end the relationship. Don't kick them out. Don't exile them, like Emperor Justinian did to the Christianities, Emperor Justinian, the founder of Christianity and bringer in of the Dark Ages, did to the philosophers at the Academy. That's the meaning of life, learning to reflect on what you're reading. Is an answer, is a true answer, but we can go further because we have the list of causes. Why go through that? To discover the dialectic that all problems you have for a reason and are solvable. So therefore, never feel guilt or blame or shame. Never play the blame game, the shame game. And never engage in punishment. That's sadism. That's why you see all of the politicians and the religious people literally hurting someone, murdering someone, flying planes into buildings or causing a mass shooting, so they can turn around and say, look what the other team did that we did. Now we can justify inflicting suffering and stealing their oil or crushing down on free speech or crushing unions or whatever the fuck as a punishment, because punishment is a thing, right, guys? Don't you learn through inflicting suffering, giving bad grades and detentions and hitting children? Isn't that how you learn? Therefore, bomb fishermen. Therefore, genocide Palestinian children. Therefore, created a prison system, a privatized prison system. Fucking disgusting horseshit. Therefore, your meaning of life is to realize that there is a true paradigm called the dialectic. All problems we have for a reason, they're all solvable, and you solve problems not by hurting people or shaming people or telling them that they're evil or a sinner or any of that horse shit. You solve problems by the dialectic. Therefore, that's a step up. Just as caring from your body to learning to read is a step up, so too is learning and reflecting into realizing the paradigm of the dialectic is a step up. Therefore, that's the meaning of life. At that level, but then again, once you discover the dialectic, step up, the model, you do all of this, care for the body, reading, reflecting, and discovering the dialectic, only in service of becoming of the final cause of the physical dimension, to recognize or to give birth to or to become pregnant with a puzzle about self and reality or your problems, or your dreams or your ideal functioning to others. But really, the truth and removing the false. That's as good as you can get. That's the purpose. The purpose is to give birth or to become pregnant with a puzzle. Notice how many people are okay with being puzzled. If everyone made a truth a priority, we would be in a utopia without effort. This is the game. This is the game. This is the truth. Now, it's difficult to say, you have to be reading. My family didn't do reading. We are practical, or I'm a practical learner. Now, what we said is the truth, but for a lot of people, what they're familiar with blocks them. They get very frustrated. You're asking them to participate in something that is very difficult for them, and they're not used to. And then to take the next step, say, hey, I don't mean read your beloved Bible or your beloved Quran or your beloved Harry Potter, if you're in a Harry Potter cult, I don't know, or your beloved MAGA bullshit. I mean specifically read someone who's a master of the Logos, which means Balboa translation of Plato or Pierre Grimes. That's a shock to people. What? I thought Kant was good, and Hegel was good, and I thought you read whatever the fuck you want and you create your own opinions. Ever notice that doesn't help? Ever notice that we still have the same problems? Ever notice we're not living in a utopia? Ever notice that every goddamn philosophy lecture and philosophy YouTube is all based on debate, which is nothing other than people using quotes from Hegel and Kant and the founding fathers and Jesus to justify the same bullshit ass opinions they've had from childhood? In other words, no one's learning.
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problem.
That's because they're not reading the right books in the right way. You can't read a mechanic textbook and become a master of surgery. So you're absolutely right. If we made truth a priority, while recognizing our job is to seek truth A, but also B, remove what's false, then we can go through this process. But if you're not also addressing your problems because you think life's about being loyal to your beliefs, to be a good Smith or a good Jew or a good Christian by only reading the Bible, only supporting Trump, only murdering non-Christians or whatever the fuck, then you're not going to go through this process. You're going to be blocked. So even learning that we have to be reading certain texts is a big jump. And I've met people who are into that and they don't ever want to talk about it. After the meeting, they're done. So learning to reflect about that and not gossip is a big jump. And then discovering that there is all problems are solvable, therefore the dialectic is the ticket, is also a big jump. I thought there were many methods. I thought there are many yogas or many meditations or many paths to salvations. To hear there's just one? Hey, how many ways are there to fly a plane? One. How many ways are there to fix your engine? One. How many right options are there where you make the incision doing surgery? One. It's not a belief. You don't take a vote. The pilot or the surgeon doesn't go to the waiting room or the plane cabin and take a vote. But what about the Buddhists and the Taoists and the whatever the fucks? Like every person or every tradition, they are at some level of development through this process. So that's a shock to hear that there is a dialectic, that there is a truth and a method. What we've been reading is that's an especial shock to some cultures that don't have a word the. All they can have is particulars. An opinion. A tradition. A theory. A belief. It's sort of perennial in that sense. Yes, exactly. That's the word, perennial. So what we're saying is there is a perennial philosophy or a parent philosophy. So it's difficult when I say, oh, I'm a philosopher. They think I mean, oh, you just read a bunch of people and you just justify your own bullshit opinions like every other philosopher. No. When I say I do Platonic philosophy or Socratic philosophy, it sounds like it's one group among many. A philosopher, that philosophy, a manyness. No. There's just one. If you use your mind to know your mind, you'll recreate Plato or Socrates. Which is essential because we killed Socrates before he was able to pass on dream analysis and midwifery. It took us 2,000 years for someone else to discover philosophical midwifery and dream analysis. Let's not wait another 2,000 years. Let's not have another 2,000-year-old 2,000 year dark age. So yeah, perennials, the universal truth exists. Yep. This is the game. But that's a shock. And if you don't have the word for the, you can't say the method. The way of solving human problems. The method of learning. The stage of evolution. The spiritual method or tradition. The philosophy. You can say a philosophy, a opinion, a theory, And famously, the Hebrews, Judaism and leading into Christianity, don't have the word the. So they're fundamentally blocked from this stage, this meaning of life. Unless they add the word the. And we've added the word croissant into English, so they can add the word the. If you don't have a word, you can't think it. That's the importance of language or naming. You can't you can't have a delicious lunch if you don't have the word croissant. You can't order it. So the meaning of life is to discover the dialectic, the tradition, the psychotherapy, if you want to call it that, solution to human problems, the yoga or method to excellence. See how difficult it is for different people along the way? But then let someone say someone is open and curious. Okay, I'm with you. But you know, when I asked what's the meaning of life or why are we here, and you started with this one and then this one and then this one and then this one, I want to know what the next one is. Or in other words, what's the meaning of discovering the dialectic? What's the reason that we're here only to discover that there is such a thing called the dialectic? Oh, the final cause, that for the sake of which you went through everything else. To become pregnant with the question, the puzzle that you are here to give birth to. To become okay with being open and curious, which you can only do if you drop blame, shame, guilt, and that crap. And you can only do that with discovering the dialectic. You don't learn through inflicting suffering. All that does is teach you to not reflect. Hey, violence or punishment is an abuse of the material meaning of life. You're not caring for the body, you're hurting the body, which makes you distracted from your learning, and you do not reflect on causes, you do not discover the purpose for your problems and the reason for your existence. All you do is try not to get caught while focusing on other people's bullshit. Savagery. Punishment is fucking barbaric savagery. Or punishment goes against the material, physical reason or cause. So, once you put an end to that by realizing that you have to care for the body and you shouldn't put yourself down, and realizing that there is a solution to all problems and all excellence, the dialectic, you can therefore be okay with not knowing. Otherwise, you always defend the Dunning-Kruger. The most ignorant or the most abused people become the most ignorant because they can never be wrong, because whenever their parents or fucking boss or clergy caught them being wrong, they would rub their sadistic fucking hands and say, now I get to punish you. I've clip-chimped you. I've caught you making a mistake. Now I get to bomb the Palestinians. Now I get to send the brown people to concentration camps. Now I get to whatever the fuck. That's the ignorance that we're playing with. So, if you're okay with not knowing and being curious, and you're okay with having a problem, and you're okay with not knowing the self and reality, so you're dropping this certainty, the self-righteous certainty and confidence that the Dunning-Kruger effect, the most ignorant people have, that's a good place to be in. That's called, Socrates calls that philosophical ignorance. That's a high state of the soul. To be puzzled, curious, and to be okay. Hey, artists tell you that. Artists say, I don't create. I'm sort of inspired by creation. I don't know where ideas come from. My job is to be open and curious and puzzled, or Socrates calls it stung, in Greek, aporia. Like that, aporia. To be stung like being stung by a stingray in the middle of the ocean, all out at sea, and you can't do anything or move or talk. You're completely stung. Aporia. all out at sea, is a necessary precondition or material condition for the philosophical journey. And you can only be stung if you recognize the dialectic. You can be okay with not knowing and realize you're supposed to be not knowing. So the meaning of life is to become open, curious soul seeking truth, pregnant with a question about yourself or your false image of self. That's the meaning of life. Is an answer. That's true. So too the other ones. Do you see a hierarchical arrangement unfolding? Can you see that someone who's spent their whole life trying not to get caught or punished by their parents, by their boss, by their teachers, by the Gestapo, KKK, ICE people, by the IDF, hearing that you're supposed to be wrong, everyone is wrong, everyone is fundamentally unjust, carrying a false image of themselves, but that's okay, you're supposed to be puzzled about that. Can you imagine how hard it is for them to hear that the physical first and final cause, or the meaning of life, is to realize you're ignorant, but be okay with that, and be curious and seek to understand? Can you see how people raised in belief traditions where they say understanding is the devil? You can't understand. Jesus, Muhammad, Allah works in mysterious ways. Lord Xenu is beyond your grasp. Those people hearing the meaning of life is to be puzzled with a question and to seek understanding to answer that question is a huge jump. Very difficult for believers. All this means to an end, correct? The Holy Grail. Sure, Holy Grail would be a way of mythologizing with a story the first and final cause, the reason for it all. To become curious with a question and seeking an understanding of an answer. That's the meaning of life. I haven't met a lot of people who are okay with not knowing and curiosity. I haven't met a lot of people open and curious to new ideas. In all my life, I've met very, very few people. Usually when some people hear a new idea, they become angry and abusive. They don't even know me, but they want to find me doing something wrong so they can shit on me or beat me up or expel me or something like that. Very few people are okay with being open and curious and seeking understanding. Even more rare. But that's the purpose, to get into that place. That will elevate you to the top of the physical realm. Yeah, it does seem that way. That's why I don't have the 50,000 viewers of Asmongold or Hassan Piker on Twitch. That's a joke I make.
They're secretly turned on by it.
And somehow people are turned on by it. I don't know what that means.
Absolutely gooped.
They're all gooped. But hey, while that is the meaning of life, while that is a high state of being, while that makes you a rare bird among the many human beings out there, that's also the hyparxis to the, not the physical dimension, but the logos dimension. You've leveled up. So you've now gone to transition to, from the physical world to mind. Dimension of mind. While this was all an answer to the why question applied to the physical world, care for the body, read along with the stream, talk with your friends, discover the dialectic, discover a puzzle and question that you're genuinely seeking true understanding of. All that does is get you as just like the physical body is much less than any of these use of our intelligence. It's physical, so too, the ideal soul is just enough to get you on the chair. If you've gone through that process, you are open and receptive and ready to do the game you are here to play. Play the noblest game, the hero's journey.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry. A road less travel and lonely, but probably worth it in the end. Yes, that's what I also tell myself.
No, you're not the one that's mentally unwell. You're brave. You are crossing into new boundaries.
But you're brave and you're crossing into new boundaries, says the oracle on the soundboard. So, all of that... excuse me. That development, just as in building a house, you want the ideal components arranged in the right order, going through their right process or hierarchy, giving birth to Billy having a place to live in. Notice bricks at the bottom. The body was at the bottom of the other list. Some sort of activity and functioning to others. Hey, reading and reflecting. According to some blueprints that you can discover, it's a dialectic. All in order to give rise to a greater functioning, now Billy has a place to live. Just as the parts of your body come together for consciousness. It's a much greater whole. Similarly, we have gone through the physical causes, the physical activities you can do in the physical world to give rise to the higher dimension, a kind of soul. You are now a kind of soul. You are now a kind of soul who have met the preconditions to participate in the greatest activity, the meaning of life. Notice, the meaning of life now changes. I mean, it's always the same. These are still answers. Why are you here? To care for your body. Why do we care for the body? So you can read. Why do you read? So you can reflect. Why do you read and reflect? So you can discover the dialectic. Why do you do that? So you can be free and open and receptive to being pregnant with a question about your problems or your higher self. Why do we become pregnant like that and become curious and puzzled and stung? So you can get on the damn chair. So you can meet the conditions for participating in the dimension of mind, or the causes, the ideal causes, or the causes related to the ideal bricks, the ideal builder, the ideal blueprints, or the causes if the logos is. So now all we're doing now is taking these same causes and saying, what would be the activity if you had the logos? What would be the activity if you had what would be the instrumental? How would you function as a being if the logos exists? What would be the paradigm if the logos exists? Because all of these would be answers to the question, why are we here, in a higher and higher and higher way. So now we can add the logos. What's our activity? What's the activity-er? What's the builder? What's the map or paradigm they would be using? And what would be the reason for going through that whole process? That's your question. Well, that's our question together. Got a bunch of questions. Pretty good reflection. We've got 2 lists of 5, giving us 10, which may or may not relate to the 10 hypotheses of Parmenides, because we've added one in the text, and the 10 ox-herding pictures of Buddhism. If there are 10 ox-herding pictures of Buddhism, could we perhaps see a connection? Are they the same? Are they different? Same question. What level of vision and understanding did these ox-herding pictures authors have? And what level of pathologos block did they have to prevent their growth? Same thing with reading anyone. What's their level of problem? What's their level of vision? Or the 2 questions we're here to give birth to. What's their level of knowledge and understanding of self and reality? And what's the level of false image about that problem? So, you could do that yourself if you wanted to. Imagine what the ideal version of these 5 causes are if the logos exists. I've given you a bit of a start. I've given you the material question, the material cause. That kind of a soul. I wrote a lot. It's right there on the board. This kind of a soul, which is the greatest you can be if you're only in the physical world, but it's also the transition or hyparxis into the realm of the true human race, what it means to truly be a human being. The game of the logos, the game of philosophy, the game of the dialectic. So I've given you the first one. You can fill out the rest. 4 more to go. Have fun. And next time, I think we're going to get into some reflection on, I haven't read ahead. I saw the word 10 ox-herding pictures, so that's why we've mentioned it today a couple of times. So we'll see where we go with these questions in our belt, under our belt, in our pocket, in our inventory, because carrying a question is what it means. So we are going to be the ideal material cause as we read. We've read enough, we've reflected enough to discover the dialectic, and we've given birth to questions. So we are literally here. We're on the chair. We're on the chair by taking these questions with us, all these questions, and these questions, and this question, taking these questions with us, all the ones that you have and that we've created together, meaning we are the ideal material cause for this kind of activity that we're going to engage in as we continue to read. Pregnant souls, pregnant with ideas. So that'll be exciting. I wonder if this reflection will have an effect on us. I wonder if our reading will change. I wonder if it'll feel different from you, feel different to you next time. Exciting stuff. Hooray. Hooray. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for the chatters. Thank you for your reflection and your words. Really fun stuff today. Where's the joy?
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder,
Childlike
dude?
wonder. It was all in here today.
These absolute dullards, borderline
Borderline
chimps
chips
who want to kiss a fox.
Thank you. Oh, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you in the next one. Remember, if you want to get a copy of the PDF, there's a link below. If you want to go through the old episodes, there's a link to the YouTube where I post all the old eps. If you want to join the Discord, you can share ideas and I post essays sometimes, talk, and you get a notification when we go live. And if you want to donate to the channel, there is a link to that below, and that is a great help. I appreciate those who can contribute if you have the means. Thank you. You don't have to, of course. It's what we're here for anyway. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. And then the button. Boy.